Welcome to Your Need to Know. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and joining me tonight is Arleen Borysiewicz, who is the Executive Director of Nvms Conflict Resolution Center. Nvms was originally Northern Virginia Mediation Service. For those who may be familiar with this nonprofit that's been around actually since the 1990s. Welcome, Arleen. Thanks so much for being here to talk with us about what is going on at the Nvms Conflict Resolution Center.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you for having us. And certainly, as we celebrate this month as the Alternative Dispute Resolution Month in Fairfax County, it's a pleasure to be at your show and celebrate that month with the rest of your viewing public.
Well, this is a very interesting history to the Nvms Conflict Resolution Center. It started back in the 1980s at George Mason University. And as it turns out, I started back in the 1980s at George Mason University as well, because I was there as a student from 1981 to 1984, majoring in government and politics. So the Center for Conflict Resolution was brand new. It was born there. And out of that came Northern Virginia Mediation Service. So tell us exactly how that happened.
Yes, during the time, this is a new concept, mediation is, was, and there were a group of, the first group of graduate students that were trying to complete their certification and their masters in conflict resolution, decided that, you know what, it would be nice to have a certification program in mediation so that they can really expand on the work that they do and they serve in the community. So they decided to go ahead and advocate the Supreme Court of Virginia, as well as the district courts of Fairfax County, um, Arlington, Loudoun, and the city of Falls Church to accept mediation as a part of the judicial process. And they also advocated the Supreme Court to put together a certification program so that now everyone has a common standard in terms of how to become a certified mediation. So that's really how that NVMS started and how certified mediators started here in Virginia.
Well, for people who have lived in the United States for any length of time at all, understand we are a very litigious culture. We like to lawyer up. And the fact of the matter is, it's not always appropriate to lawyer up. So, my second example with NVMS is that when I went through a divorce in the mid 1990s, what I discovered being a resident of Fairfax County is that there was a stipulation when you had a custody and visitation that you went through mediation before you went to the courts. And that was designed because some stranger should not be deciding what is best for your children. Parents should be deciding what is best for their children. And so I found that experience, which was my first experience with MVMS, to be a very rewarding one. I appreciated the fact that there were people to guide us through making the best decisions for our family instead of simply taking all of our disputes to the courtroom. And I think this is just a different way of thinking about how to resolve, you know, disagreements.
Absolutely. Self determination is one of the key tenets of mediation. It is the self determination of the two parties that are across each other at the table who are deciding how they will resolve the conflict. Not a lawyer, not a judge. That sometimes turns out the decisions that they make may not be in the best interest or to the satisfaction of the people that are disputing. So it is one of the most important tenet of mediation. That idea of you decide what solutions will work for the both of you who are in dispute.
And of course, when two parties reach an impasse, and it's a disagreement, whether it's a business disagreement or it's a family disagreement, whatever the disagreement is, mediators lead people through the thought process and decision process of negotiation. But this also has been applied to things that touch on the realm of law enforcement, which is this other realm where we bring dispute resolution, again trying to avoid judges and lawyers and punitive actions taken in order to resolve disputes. So tell us a little bit about the, sort of the AAP program, which I'm
Sure.
very proud of Fairfax County
Yes.
for really having spearheaded this. So
Yeah.
explain to our viewers what that program is.
Well, back in the early, I guess, 2010 and thereabouts, there were really a group of people that banded together and formed this idea of the Alternative Accountability Program. And this is simply a reaction to the fact that there's got to be a better ways, particularly for young people that tend to do foolish things when they're young, and then if without any other alternative other than being being part of the law enforcement process, this foolishness becomes part of their record for life. So this group of people that includes representatives from Fairfax County's uh, Juvenile and Domestic Relations District Court, Fairfax County Public School, Fairfax County Neighborhood and Community Services, Fairfax County Police Department, and Nvms as the nonprofit partner banded together to put together to establish this alternative accountability program, which is a diversion strategy from law enforcement. So people are young people, first time offenders, juvenile offenders. So this really just affects uh, young people in Fairfax County doing that are cited in Fairfax County who are 17 years or younger and first time offenders. So they are put into this diversion program that allows them to be in contact with the victims of the harm that they have caused. And so, in that context, the victim and the offender sit down across the table, talk about what harm was done, how the harm was impacting the victim, how the harm was impacting the community, and how the harm will be repaired. So that is a discussion that takes place that might include not only the offender and then the victim, but also might include community members like the parents or the principals or the friends of people on both sides. So, really, the restorative justice process is it is a community process. There is a sense of community accountability for the harm that is being that has been caused. So they talk about the harm, and then at the end of that process they have a agreement that is signed and that is taken to the courts, and it's done. And there is some monitoring process to make sure that the offender is actually abiding by the agreement that was done. And mind you, the agreement doesn't have to be so punitive. It could simply be a letter of apology. It could be community service. It could be a posting on the Facebook where they are telling friends and others that this has happened and this is how it's impacted us and I'm wrong and all of that. So it could be as simple as that. Mind you, having gone through that process, we have found, because we have been tracking this, that for example, in 2019 and 2020, people that have gone through the Restorative Justice Conference, the recidivism rate is 1% after 1 year from the conference. So that's a very stark um, statistic compared to people that do not go through the Restorative Justice Conference. So the Restorative Justice Conference, the RJ program, the AAP program are working for our young people, because otherwise they'll be detained, they will have the record. It's just too much to bear for a young person to carry throughout their lives.
So it's interesting, that statistic, 1% recidivism is amazing. And I will let our viewers know too that I did a show on restorative justice with Vicki Shope of the Fairfax County
Yes.
Public School System and Bill Casey and Dave Deal from Nvms Conflict Resolution Center 4 years ago, back in February of 2018. So this was before this particular measure of how effective this program actually is. And so I think that's interesting for people who want to find that previous show on Inside Scoop. All of those shows are available out on YouTube and also on my website, readthinkact.com. But one of the things that I remember most clearly is that in doing restorative justice, one of the many benefits is that the offender is made whole because there is a path back, restitution, reparations, in some way making whole the person who was harmed also makes whole the person who did the harm.
Absolutely.
And I think that if you look at it from that perspective, you can easily see why this is a better alternative than simply pushing young people through the criminal justice system. There has to be a path back so that they can be made whole as someone who did, commit an offense that harmed people. So I'm delighted to hear that this restorative justice program, the AAP program, which is what it's called in Fairfax County, really has metrics to show just how effective it is. You must be very proud.
Very proud, and in fact, it's taking a different turn as well. For us, for example, we have had discussions with the Commonwealth Attorney of Fairfax County about the possibility of creating a similar program, but not for juveniles, people from the ages of 18 to 25. We think of juveniles and young people as 18 and below or 17 and below. But on the other hand, we know from the science that the adolescent brain continues to be developing until they are ages 24, 25. So there is some sense of maybe we should expand the reach of this diversion program, the restorative justice diversion program, to people beyond 18 up to 25 years. So we have had some communication with the Commonwealth Attorney of Fairfax County to see if we can pilot this. And we are doing that very slowly, but there is that pressure. I mean, to young people
Make mistakes.
yeah, they
They
make
make
mistakes,
mistakes.
and
And
sometimes they duplicate their mistake, and sometimes learning is hard, but
there
it,
needs to be an alternative. And we're
yes.
going to go to a quick break before we come back and speak more about this with Arleen of Nvms Conflict Resolution Center. So please join us after the break.
So how was work?
It was 1,300 hours. My math class from 302 was in the trenches. Davy Roth had it the worst. Fractions were coming at him left and right. He just didn't get the damn things. 2 days ago, I tried to teach him what 1/4 of 1/2 was using different sizes of blocks. Yesterday, I tried again by dividing up pizza. Both missions failed.
Oh no.
But today, I was ready. I created a combat math game where the only way to beat the enemy is to out-fraction them. Davy conquered every last denominator. My game was so successful, the principal is deploying it to math squadrons all over the school. Anywho, how was your day?
Oh, today my boss treated the office to salad wraps.
Salad wraps.
I know.
Before we celebrate the freedom most Americans have, we must fight for the freedom all Americans deserve. Because all lives can't matter until Black lives matter.
Today I'm going to talk to you about physics. Come on in, girls. Let's go. This is the first rocket to get humans to Mars.
Really tall.
I'm a rocket structural engineer, designing and building parts of the rocket. You are the generation that will be stepping foot on Mars. Do I have a group of astronauts on my hands?
Yes.
You can become a rocket scientist or whatever else you want to be.
Welcome back to Your Need to Know. Tonight we're talking with Arleen Borysiewicz from the Northern Virginia Mediation Services Center for Conflict Resolution. We call this Nvms for short. And when we went on break, we were talking about the tremendous success with the AAP program. And there's another program called Bridging Communities. So tell us a little bit about how that program dovetails with this pursuit of a different path to justice.
Right. Well, let's go back to restorative justice. Restorative justice assumes that a crime has happened. A juvenile has been cited by law enforcement and so on and so forth. And then they go to restorative justice conference. Bridging communities is a proactive effort to ensure that our young people and our residents in the communities do not engage in harmful behavior that will lead them to being cited by the law enforcement.
Things like shoplifting would
Yes.
be a good example.
Yeah. So what we want to do is to provide community education programs around in the community, free to community, free for young people, that will allow them to be equipped with the tools and the strategies to manage conflict on their own when they face it, when they face them in the school, when they face them in the playground, when they face them in their favorite hangout place, how to manage conflict and how to how to de-escalate conflict. So this is a community education program that allows and teaches our residents, particularly our young people, to manage conflict in a proactive way. So that is really the essence of bridging communities. So what we want to do is to pilot in the same way that we piloted restorative justice AAP in the Mount Vernon area of the Route 1 corridor. We want to pilot bridging communities in the Mount Vernon Route 1 corridor. This is one of the most there's a lot of disparities in that area. And when you have disparities, you have conflict. And that's just the cycle of that. And so what we want to do is to see if we can get through some of the community members, some of the residents, and some of the community leaders, and promote to them the idea of being able to provide community education programs to all members for free. I mean, if it were so that's the idea behind it. And we want to have restorative justice circles proactive, where they can examine particular issues, particular cases, real life cases, and see how young people and other residents will react after listening to those cases. We will want to have some role plays that young people can look at and determine, okay, so how would you react when this kind of situation takes place live in front of you? And so to have those means of being able to assess how they might react, and what if perhaps there is a better way to react to certain situations that they encounter. So this is the heart of restorative justice. It's community education, it's listening circles. We want to be able to have a summer young bridge builders summer program perhaps in 2023 summer, that brings people together, young people together, almost a very intensive academy about managing conflict and the escalating conflict. We want those people that are attending our Young Bridge Builders program to host their own listening circles, because you learn more when you teach others. So we want the opportunity for those young people that are in the summer training program to have the opportunity to coordinate their own listening circles in the community, mentored by us and mentored by other people and other community members. So it's just a value cycle that we hope will add to the lives of people and residents in Mount Vernon, that we hope will end up people not getting into trouble with law enforcement.
So when you do this outreach, so how are these trainings something that would happen at school through faith communities, through where people live?
Right.
Exactly how would
What we
these be
want to
constructed?
do, yes, what we want to do is start with 5, maybe 10 critical anchor organizations, and that it could be faith-based organizations in the route one ordered, organizations that are really trusted organizations in the region, because we may have started in Mount Vernon, but Nvms, Northern Virginia Mediation Service, is not a name that is very familiar to
Right,
people in the community. So
right.
what we want to do is partner with organizations, faith-based organizations, the churches, organizations like United Community, organizations like the Lorton Action Group, and similar, and have them be sort of our first cut of relationships that we create. And out of those relationships, then have them help us reach out to their constituents, and then have them help us promote the classes within their area of the spheres of influence. So that's how we will do this. And from those organizations as well, and we hope that we might have at least 10, um, we will ask them to nominate from among the community members who they might want to be part of the summer intensive program, because they know the capacity of the people, the young people. They know who they are, they know who the young leaders are. And so we want them to be the ones in the Youth Bridge Builders program.
And that makes sense. It's a leadership opportunity for
Mhm.
young people. And as you said, people learn more from doing and teaching. So when young people do learn these skills and they do take them back to their own communities, and a lot of those are going to be school based communities, young people are involved in sports teams and in
Yes,
other activities where having the skills of being able to de escalate conflict and to resolve issues
yes.
internally is something that benefits all of them. And it's a great skill for young people to have.
Yes, and then all of a sudden, what I hope it will, so, like I said earlier, disparity brings
Conflict, right?
conflict.
There are people who
Yes,
have more.
conflict, and people reaching and trying to figure out what size of the pie they need to have. And so it also, disparities also bring isolation. They're isolated from their families. When some of their basic needs are not being met, it leads to all kinds of things that land people into trouble. So by building bridging communities, the hope is that we are really calling community members to feel more engaged and more related to that community, that they will really feel connected. And so when people feel connected to the community, I think the last thing that will probably come to their minds is stealing from someone's store,
Right.
because now they recognize the humanness of that other person, of that store owner, or what have you. So it's that connection that we seek, not only about the leadership of that individual person that we train, but really the community, the sense of community that we hope to bring about by having this constant cycle of listening sessions being hosted by community members.
And the Route 1 corridor, there are disparities there. And we should acknowledge, too, that we are a very international part of Virginia. We have many different communities, cultures, people who have their own cultures and their own beliefs, and they are all living together. Some of them very densely living together. And so we need to listen to each other. And there does need to be a deeper understanding. And there also, as we talked about with restorative justice, when harm is done, there has to be a way to make whole both the perpetrator as well as the person who was harmed. And this to me is the foundation of healthy communities.
Right. I remember a story, and this was just last year. Um, it was a school setting where someone shot a photograph of a person and a person with disability, and it was a compromising shot, and then put it in social media. So the people the in school,
Right.
so the people that saw this, and this young person whose shot was taken is a very, very popular person. I mean, he well loved in the school community. And when they saw this picture of him in this compromising position, being laughed at, and other members were kind of making fun of it, other members of the school were very livid and approached the administration of the school that they need to do something about this. So they went into a conference, into a restorative justice conference, where the principal was, the school administrators were involved, the parents of the young person, the offender, was involved, and the parents of the person who was harmed, whose photo was taken, was involved, and they were in conference. At the end of the day, what had happened was, there was an apology, but the offender also suggested, I mean, acknowledged it, and and said, "I'm gonna post my public apology in the same social media platform that I had taken that shot originally." And to the parents, that was far more than what they could have expected, and to the students that were so livid by it, they were happy with the outcome. So it's really a community responsibility that took place. It was a community, and not just the person that was harmed, that was um, you know advocating for some remedy, but there were the community of other young people that was like advocating. So
That is a great example of teaching young people skills they will carry with them for the rest of their lives. And so sometimes the silver lining to a bad situation is learning something from it.
absolutely,
Instead of simply being punished for it, you learn something from it.
absolutely.
I appreciate that so much. That's a great way to end this segment, Arleen. Thank you so much for being on Your Need to Know. And if people are interested in past shows, you can find them on YouTube, and join us every Wednesday at 7 p.m. for Your Need to Know.